Kamigawa Neon Dynasty has just experienced a major leak, and this is no ordinary leak either. There are strong signs that this leak is actually a result of corporate theft.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings! Owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends, I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered to talk about a very exciting situation. We have a new batch of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty spoilers, but these aren't officially put out by Wizards of the Coast, which means we're getting early access to the goodness. And then on top of this early access, you get to layer on the interesting aspect of how these spoilers were acquired. I do genuinely believe that this is a result of corporate theft. I will lay out my evidence for you guys, but understand there's no way for me to conclusively prove this. Wizards of the Coast obviously will have to do an investigation as they've done previous times, and then they usually release a little statement that doesn't really give you much in way of details, but does confirm that it did happen. So let's get the first spoiler up on the screen so we can enjoy some new Kamigawa action together and start to lay the foundation for the whole corporate theft aspect of it. Okay, so the first thing we're looking at today is admittedly a pretty underwhelming card. This is Jukai Trainee. This is just a whatever common, right? So 1 green and 1 gets you a 2/2 human samurai that has the ability whenever it blocks or becomes blocked, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And the flavor text says, the Order of Jukai accepts only the strongest of body and spirit. I will train until I meet their expectations. This is your very bog standard style magic card. This is draft filler garbage that is, it's really not going to make most people happy at all. They're going to look at it and go, okay, whatever. I'll play this in a draft. Maybe people who play samurais, who play green and have a hardcore love for samurais will find a place for this guy. But you got to be real about it. This is an underwhelming card. Now, I want you to take a look at the outer corners of this card because you'll notice the corners on this card are quite weird, right? Take a look at it. You can see some of them are squared off. It's a little more subtle. You may not be aware of it at first, but if you really do drill your eyes in there and take a look, you can see there are square corner action on this Jukai Trainee, okay? So that is going to come into the whole corporate part of it at the end when we talk about how these cards made it out of Wizards' hands, okay? So the next thing we're going to look at is Nezumi Prowler. Now, unlike the Jukai Trainee, the Nezumi Prowler is actually a pretty solid card. So this is 1 black and 1 for a 3/1 artifact rat ninja. So it's interesting. This is a part alive, part construct style being. At first, when I saw it, I didn't even think that it was an artifact creature because I was actually caught up by its abilities. I like this thing. It's solid. So it's got ninjutsu for 1 black and 1, which means that you can basically swap this guy in for an unblocked attacker for 1 black and 1. And the ability of the other ability, I should say, is when it enters the battlefield, target creature you control gets Death Touch and lifelink. I find this to be a very interesting concept because the ability feels great both ways, either when you play this Nezumi normally or when you ninjutsu it out. Because if you play it normally, then you're playing it before your attack phase, and you can go, you know what, I'm going to give this creature Death Touch and lifelink, which makes it highly unlikely they're going to want to block that creature. So you have a way to almost kind of half force a creature through and gain some life at the same time. Or if you ninjutsu it out and they've blocked some of your other creatures, then all of a sudden you can give one of those blocked creatures Death Touch, and they may have thought they were getting rid of a little 1/1 by blocking it with a big 4/4, and all of a sudden now they're losing their guy. So, I mean, this is really 2 mana. It's the 2 mana to ninjutsu and the 2 mana to cast this thing that makes it feel really strong. And the concept behind it is crazy to me too. So you've got a Kamigawa like Rat Ninja, who has been infused with so much in the way of, like, I guess cybernetics or something like that, that they become an artifact creature. And you can see that there's this like energy flowing in their core. So it makes you wonder, it's like, do they have this crazy power flowing through them, and it's like the essence of life and death together, right? Where it's like, it's this sort of, oh, it can revitalize you, but it can also obliterate you. But the Rat Ninja literally only has the ability to send this force out of their body once. This really does fire up my imagination in terms of what exactly is going on here, right? Now, out of the 4 cards we're going to be looking at here, this one is in the best shape. If you look at this card, it's a little dinged up, but overall there is very little damage to it. So this one actually figures the least into the corporate theft concept. And I'm going to point different parts out about different cards so I can tie it all together at the end in case you don't understand why I'm laying this out. All right. This isn't something I normally do with spoiler videos, right? So the Nezumi Prowler is a very, very cool card. Now, the next card we're going to look at is an Italian card. Now, normally I don't include non-English cards in my spoiler videos, but I want to include this for a couple of different reasons. One is it adds to the overall theory about how these cards got taken from Wizards, and 2, it actually features a new ability to Magic the Gathering that we've never had before, and that ability is actually called Modified. So this spell is, it's going to be called something along the lines of Flame Volley, Flame Barrage. There's probably some Magic cards that have that name, but that's like the rough translation. So it's crazy to me that this spell is only uncommon, but what are you going to do? Magic's power level has been moving up the chain, right? So 1 red and X. It deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker. If you control a modified creature, it deals X plus 2 damage instead. Now, obviously, you got to be wondering, what counts as a modified creature? Any creature that is equipped, enchanted, or has a counter on it. Doesn't matter if it's a trample counter, +1/+1 counter, anything like that. Those all count as modified. It's kind of funny to think that the crazy mutated beasts from Ikoria don't count as modified, right? Probably because that ability only exists in Ikoria and it wouldn't really make sense to reference it here. But yeah, modified is a new thing to Magic the Gathering, and it's pretty easy to modify a creature. Funnily enough, like, enchanting a creature and putting a counter on a creature feel far more permanent than equipment. Like, if I pick up something off the ground like a spatula and I'm going to get you with the spatula, I'm not modified, right? Like, I haven't like grafted this spatula onto my body like I'm some super low budget Phyrexian or something, right? So the whole modified, like, the flavor of it is a little bit muddy. We saw the same sort of thing actually with Dominaria when we were dealing with the historic spells. But anyhow, this is an interesting spell, right? The fact that you can just use it as a 1 mana, 2 damage to any target if you wanted to, as long as you have a modified creature out, or just this big scaling burn spell, it feels really solid overall, and the artwork is good for a burn spell, right? You've got this kind of darkened background. You have somebody who's actually casting this spell, and the magic is like, it looks like it's almost ripping around in a circle. Like, I don't know if the artwork, you got to understand, this is all, these cards, these pictures were taken on somebody's cell phone, right? So as a result, you get low quality images. So I can't tell if the individual that the fire is emanating from is modified in some way. I'm assuming that they would be, but I mean, this could be artwork they had kicking around either way, because Wizards does sometimes have artwork that didn't get used originally, and then they find a different purpose for it. But I do like the darkened background, the flame that looks like it's looping around this other individual. Now, in terms of adding into the whole story, we're going to talk about how these cards made their way out of Wizards' facility. I want you to note 2 things about this card in particular. One, again, take a look at the corners. We're dealing with multiple squared corners. This is a misprint in that regard. But on top of it, it's also an Italian card. And it's the only non-English card we have in this batch of spoilers, right? So let us turn to the next card we have to talk about, and this one is a big banger, but we only get to see one side of it. And this is Okagachi made Manifest, all right? So this is one side of a flip card. I am very curious to know what the other side is. But on the side that we can see, we already know that it is a 6/6 flyer with trample. It counts as all colors. And when it attacks, defending player chooses a non-land card in your graveyard. Return that card to your hand. Okagachi gets +X+0 till end of turn, where X is the mana value of the card returned to your hand that way. Like, that's bonkers. This thing is going to regrowth the card back from your graveyard every single turn, while at the same time giving a fat boost to Okagachi, who happens to have flying and trample, which means it's going to be harder to block him in the first place because of flying, and the trample is just going to be Plowtown slamming into you, getting cards back over and over. I feel like this card, depending on the front side of it, obviously, is going to be like super oppressive if it gets rolling. So the question is, how do you make Okagachi manifest? This is a really exciting concept to me. And I'm sure, looking at this one in particular, you probably don't need me to point out exactly what's wrong with the card, do you? Because when you look at it, you probably have the same reaction I did. And you went, what happened to this? Like, did you spill a ton of water on this? Did this make it through part of a wash? Like, a Magic card's not going to make it through a washing machine in anything but a crushed up little ball of white and blue flecks. And yes, I'm speaking from experience. I have accidentally sent Magic cards through the wash multiple times, and they always happen to be cards that I wanted to keep. Don't ask why I had them in my pocket. It was like in a shirt pocket or something. You know what I mean? You tuck it into the shirt pocket, you button the pocket, you forget it's there, right? Because Magic cards are pretty lightweight. So I've done it. But this is not how a Magic card looks when it's been destroyed like through like water damage or whatever. You can see that this, in my opinion, what we're looking at is a foil where the front part of the foils, if you've ever like peeled a Magic foil, you can actually determine that the front part of it is like a sticker. It's just like a sticker you can pull off. So this to me looks like the foil sticker, but it's just been misapplied when the card was originally created in such a horrific way that you've got all of these wrinkles and whatever. And you have to understand that when something like this happens, it's not just one card that is affected. It's literally that entire print sheet in most cases that is affected. So you'll notice every single one of the cards that we have looked at across the board has some level of error to them, right? So my theory is that these were stolen from a production facility. And obviously it's just a theory. As I said before, we don't have any concrete proof of this. And in previous incidences, say for example, the Ixalan, back in the Ixalan day, a rare sheet actually got stolen from the facility. Somebody was able to take pictures of the full rare sheet. We got to see all of it in advance. And Wizards of the Coast went after those people legally, right? So this is another situation where this could end up happening to the person who's responsible for this, right? We live in the internet era where people will take risks that they shouldn't just because they can get some like digital good guy points. You know what I mean? Get your Twitter clicks or your Facebook or whatever. Like we see how people react to social media. So people want to be, hey, check it out. I got this thing that nobody else does and I'm the first one to show it. That temptation is strong. So I believe these are all rejected Magic cards that somebody stole from the printing facility. How it works is the first number of print sheets that they send out, zoom, 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 they all get thrown away because they're printed to low quality. They have to calibrate the sheets. The cards will be printed off kilter. There'll be all kinds of different issues with them, right? So all these reject cards basically get marked to get destroyed. And they just get dumped into these big bins, and then those bins end up getting shredded. So all somebody has to do who works there is go like, no, most people aren't going to care if they see somebody who's going to, if you're going to dump something into one of these, what's to stop you from grabbing some of these cards, right? What is to stop you from snagging this? You can, there's stuff in the trash from different levels of production. You'll have full sheets that are there. You'll also have individually cut cards, and that's what's going on with these ones. These cards were already individually cut, and you can see that multiple sheets had that that square corner issue. So those cards all get, when quality control is doing its job properly, all that stuff gets caught and thrown in the trash. In more recent times, we're seeing more of that stuff make its way into the wild. But when you combine the fact that we have multiple different types of errors here, right? You have square corner erroring. You have what's going on with the Nezumi Prowler, which is just kind of beat up, but it's not a square corner issue. You've got the O Kagachi, right? Which is completely messed up, probably from the foil sheeting not being applied properly. And then you've got the fact that you have Italian square cornered cards. Now, the Italian cards and the English cards, why are they together? And where are they together? There's only one place they're really going to end up together, and that is in the junk bin. So I am strongly of the belief that these cards were stolen from Wizards of the Coast production facility, and while it is trash for that company, and there are like laws in some places can get a little hazy around one man's trash, once they throw it away, you can steal it, but it probably hadn't already made it out to the trash, right? These cards are still in good enough condition that they probably came from the reject bin before it hit the shredder and Destructo. Because as far as I understand, they try not to let any full-on Magic cards make it out of the facility for a number of different reasons. But it certainly does add a level of spice to this leak on top of the cards. So let me know your thoughts about the cards and whether you as well believe this was somebody taking something that they shouldn't. Time will tell on that one. Wizards of the Coast is sometimes tight-lipped, and sometimes when we know this stuff has happened, they come out and at least go, we got him, he's paying for it, kind of thing, right? Anyhow, thanks for coming by. Big shout out to all my patrons. I'm gonna leave some fun videos on the screen for you, my friends, and I will see you guys next time.